I said, you have 2 days left in your presidency, and there's a couple of things that you promised to do that you didn't do. What? And he said to me, Judge, if they showed you what they showed me, you wouldn't release those files either. And I said, well, who's they? And what did they show you?
So Andrew Napolitano recently went on Glenn Deason's podcast to reveal what he almost convinced Donald Trump to do at the very tail end of his first term, and how this would have changed everything in a way for the dissident community. He also gets into the continuity, the striking similarities between the U.S. government regardless of who wins elections. So let's get his take on this. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
This is something that I know in Russia, President Putin commented on once, that they all come in with good, genuine ambitions, but then somehow they end up, turning towards, the status quo, or the tyranny of status quo, perhaps, as Milton Friedman would have called it.
A friend of mine, Tom Woods, whom you may know, an independent scholar who also runs a popular podcast, says it seems like no matter who you vote for president, you end up with John McCain, the late Senator McCain, of course, being the most notorious war hawk in the modern era, perhaps from his own background in the military. I don't know exactly what it is. I can guess that the deep state, the intelligence community, the parts of the government that never change, the intelligence community, the bankers, the military, I wouldn't say threatened, but pressure American presidents, probably by scaring them into complying with the wishes of the deep state and the military industrial complex, because it happens over and over and over again. We have the uniparty, a derogatory phrase to describe the areas where Republicans and Democrats agree, and war is one of them. We have been fighting the forever wars since the end of World War II. I don't even know what the number is, but it's rare that there's been a time where there hasn't been some war going on since 1945.
Yeah, this is all exactly correct. Like I say, the deep state remains the same regardless of the names, and that's because the lobbying interests, the lobbies, the central bank, and the Fed, I'm wearing the shirt right now, the military-industrial complex, the deep state intelligence bureaucracies like the CIA and the FBI and the NSA, they all remain. They all remain in power with high-ranking bureaucrats in each of those organizations, institutions, and bureaucracies wielding power far beyond even past Congresses have wielded against the American public, and that stands regardless of who you elect. So Tom Woods is exactly right. No matter who you vote for, you always get John McCain, and especially that's the case with U.S. foreign policy, especially during my lifetime, where it's been regime change operations and military strikes and endless funding to Israel and now Ukraine throughout the entire duration of my life, overthrowing in some ways, or at least helping to, in Syria, also getting into a civil war on behalf of Saudi Arabia in Yemen, overthrowing Iraq, 20-year occupation there, 20-year occupation in Afghanistan, long-lasting conflict with Somalia that still remains today, where bombings have been ramped up this year. All these situations are a result of the deep state mentality and the deep state bureaucracy and the uniparty. Judge is right. War is an area where there's massive overlap between the two parties.
So it's a problem that no one's been able to solve. It would take a serious pro-peace libertarian like Ron Paul, who's beyond his years for running for office, or Thomas Massie, his ideological successor in the House. It would take a person like that, I think, to resist the entreaties and coercions and perhaps threats, but I'm not personally aware of any, that come from the deep state to American presidents. The same thing happens in America with surveillance. These laws that permit the feds to capture every keystroke on every mobile device and every laptop in the country, they all have a sunset. So every 5 years, those laws are about to expire. And people stand on the floor of the House of Representatives and the Senate saying, I'm not voting for this. This is against the Constitution. This is not why we have in America. And then they get a visit in their office by the intelligence community, which swears them to secrecy before the visit. That's a bad start to a visit. Somebody's going to come in your office and say, "You can't tell anybody what I'm about to tell you." I would say, "Leave the office." Nevertheless, they swear them to secrecy, and then they come out of the office and they've changed their minds, and we don't know what they were told or what they saw.
Yeah, many such cases, this is exactly true. And let's be real, I don't vote, but I would support Thomas Massie if he ran in 2028. He's fantastic, but let's be real, if he got in there, at best he would be a lame duck, and at worst, they would completely destroy his life, plant child porn on his devices. You know what they would do. They tried to take out Donald Trump over Russiagate and a stupid insurrection narrative that nearly put him behind bars. So just imagine what they would do to a real dissident, a real foe, a big intrusive government, the warfare state, ties to Israel, etc. They would destroy that man's life. I'm all for it, but the American populace hasn't been awakened yet, and that would be the precursor needed to really have a more dissident-oriented or libertarian-oriented direction in this country. I don't think we go back to that anytime soon through politics, I'm sorry to say.
Similar to a conversation I had with President Trump at the end of his first term. He had called me to ask my opinion of some pardons and commutations he was about to issue because I knew some of these people. And I said, "How you doing?" Now, this was the era where this is a week before Biden was going to be inaugurated. Trump was still telling everybody that he really won the election in 2020. So I'm not doing too well. I won the election, and you know it. And I didn't want to get into a dispute with him. I said, you have 2 days left in your presidency, and there's a couple of things that you promised to do that you didn't do. What? What? Well, one thing is to release the JFK files. Another thing is to pardon Julian Assange, who then was still in jeopardy, and Edward Snowden. I thought I had talked him into pardoning Snowden and Assange. Not the point of my story.
Wow, well, let's just stop there because that would have been huge if he would have pardoned both Assange and Snowden. Now, Assange is out on a plea deal that wasn't perfect. He admitted to crimes that he didn't commit, and he had a press conference and said, "I pled guilty to journalism," but that's not justice. That man deserves medals for shedding light and exposing U.S. war crimes in the Middle East. And Snowden, too, and that's interesting because in 2013, Trump called Snowden a traitor who essentially, a terrible traitor and a spy who should be executed. Those are direct quotes from Trump. He seemed to have switched his tune, and there were media accounts in the end of 2020 that said that Trump was considering going the other way on Snowden. So I believe the judge in this regard that he was close to swaying him to that side. But let's be real. Some accounts have Pompeo talking Trump out of not releasing the JFK files in his first term. But if Pompeo, persuaded him to do that, of course Pompeo was able to persuade him not to pardon Snowden and Assange. But both of those men deserve medals of honor for their great service to the American people. They expose government tyranny and crimes, and exposing crimes is not a crime.
But I said, "What about the JFK files?" And he said to me, "Judge, if they showed you what they showed me, you wouldn't release those files either." And I said, "Well, who's they? And what did they show you?" And he said, "Someday," and then he raised his voice, "when we're talking and there aren't 15 people listening to the phone call, I'll tell you." Well, he never did. So apparently, in his view, or at least he wanted me to think this, somebody in the military showed him something so horrible that it made him rethink that, whether it was a direct threat or a veiled threat or just a picture of JFK's brains blown out. I don't know.
Well, that's even more mystifying because he has released the JFK files, or what they say is all the JFK files, and there were some new revelations in there regarding CIA surveillance of Oswald, the withholding of all evidence to the Warren Commission regarding CIA surveillance and Oswald's connections to the CIA, and, oh, by the way, the fact that the CIA tried to overthrow Rafael Trujillo, the leader of the Dominican Republic, that too. But there was nothing in there that, would cause an average person not to release them. So this makes me think that they're still withholding information about JFK or the JFK assassination, the JFK files, because otherwise this wouldn't make sense. that what Trump said wasn't clearly in those files that was released. And we know that the state is just clandestine and corrupt. They probably are withholding things, or it was related to something else. Trump could have been lying too and just overstating the case to shut Napolitano up. But man, this does raise more questions.
So threats, coercion, fear, promises, these all rule the day in the American government.
Well, you've always been quite concerned about the constitutional overreach as a source of, I guess, getting United States into trouble abroad as well. But on the topic of Trump and the intelligence agencies, to what extent do you think the lack of oversight of what the intelligence agencies do is it a growing problem? Because this really came out in the media with the Russiagate scandal, in which the intelligence agencies seem to come after Trump in a very big way. I'm not sure if he shared any of his perspectives on this with you.
He has shared those perspectives with me, and it's nothing different from what you've heard him say publicly. The intelligence community is radically out of control. When George W. Bush realized that the NSA, that's America's domestic spying apparatus, which employs 60,000 people. That's 10 times the number of FBI agents that there are. The federal government employs spies to spy on us domestically.
Just think about that. A mass surveillance apparatus that goes far beyond the bounds of the Fourth Amendment, that requires that, you can't have your person's papers and effects searched by government without a warrant, and their mass data collecting from us. This is what Snowden revealed in the prison program that the NSA is running. And now you have Palantir trying to expand that, create an even more centralized database that ties individuals to this data, as well as IRS information regarding Social Security, and information that other agencies have on individuals. It's a scary prospect. And again, this is a bipartisan effort in Washington. Did Clapper ever have to pay the price after, swearing under oath that this wasn't happening? No. He got hired as a CNN analyst, and they're still not pushing down crimes against him in Russiagate too. These people get off scot-free for this madness, this tyranny.
When George W. Bush learned that the NSA was in the Defense Department, he told the head of the NSA, you don't have to worry about the Constitution because I'm your boss. And as Commander-in-Chief, I don't have to worry about the Constitution. Now, both of those statements were erroneous under basic Supreme Court rulings and constitutional law. But it shows you an attitude on the part of people in the government that they don't have to follow the Constitution. The Patriot Act, which is a horrible piece of legislation that allows federal agents to bypass the Fourth Amendment. Under the Fourth Amendment, only a judge can issue a search warrant based on probable cause of crime. The Patriot Act allows one FBI agent to authorize another FBI agent to prepare his own search warrant. They don't call it search warrant. They call it national security letters, but it's has the same effect. This went into existence in 2001.
Yeah, all on the backs of war propaganda. And that's why the wars are so important to oppose, because the war propaganda inspires violations of your civil liberties that have come through the Patriot Act, the DHS, the TSA, etc., openly violating the Fourth Amendment, that prohibition against government power we're supposed to have. And by the way, there's clear historical reasons for that, because in the 1760s, for instance, Bostonians were being completely aggrieved by what were called the writs of assistance, or the general writs. These were these blanket search authorizations by British agents to try to stop smuggling in the United States and in ports. Boston was one of them. The great patriot James Otis rose against this. And, in many ways, the people that saw Otis's famous speech on this in 1763, including a young John Adams, said, "The spirit of American independence was then and there born." So this is a big reason for why we have the Fourth Amendment. Of course, our government totally ignores it today.
That's 24 years ago. a whole generation of spies and federal agents have come of age being taught, don't worry about the Constitution. Just get this stuff done. We'll deal with the constitutional matters lately. So now we have spying on everybody and we have cutting constitutional corners. I mean, if you think that I'm a bank robber and you want to know what I'm doing with the money and you want to look at my bank account, why bother going to a judge and demonstrating probable cause, which takes hours or even days, when all you have to do is hack into my bank account and you can see what's there? Never mind that computer hacking is a felony for which the FBI prosecutes people. They themselves do it all the time because it's easier, faster, and cheaper than complying with the Constitution. So the
Yeah.
Constitution formally still exists. We still have three branches of government. We still have an independent life tenure judiciary. We still have a presidency. We still have a Congress with two houses. But functionally, it doesn't exist because very few people follow it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the case regardless of party, regardless of government agency. There's so many violations and perversions of the Constitution. You can hardly keep track of them these days. Judge mentioned a few of them regarding privacy, certainly wars. Declaring wars used to be a power confined to the Congress. It should be a power confined to the Congress. It's among the Article 1, Section 8 powers that were delegated exclusively to the Congress. But the president these days, regardless again of party, just sends troops overseas. We just saw this recently with Iran. We just saw this with Yemen. That war has been going on for a decade. But, that was another situation where there wasn't a war declaration. So these people are all war criminals. There hasn't been an actual declared war since World War II. And, we just have this AUMF in terms of the Iraq War, a bad precedent itself, because what you had there was essentially Congress just kind of delegating their own authority to the president to wage this kind of open-ended war against an abstract idea, just destined to make it endless. This was the war on terror, right? And Bush always said, well, Congress authorized it. Well, Congress doesn't have the power under the Constitution to delegate its own power to another branch of government. Same thing with the president. But the Congress is so deferential to the president, especially when tribalism is involved. You have Democrats, often acting adversarial to Republican presidents in matters of war and vice versa. But there's very few people that remain principled against it. There are some people like Thomas Massie. He opposes all the wars, regardless of whether Biden or Trump was in power. He'll be happy to say that. And he's been dragged for it. There's a reason why he's a marked man in Washington, and they attacked him first and foremost. So Judge is exactly right. Whether or not you believe in constitutionalism, constitutional theory, I know a lot of people watching this might be a spooner, right? Or not especially care about written constitutions. The general trajectory of government, regardless of the type of government it has, tends to centralize. And Jefferson warned about this. He said that the natural course of things is for liberty to yield and government to gain ground. That's what we're seeing today. And I don't think that there's any solution to it from the inside, from Washington. You're not going to change the system from the inside. You have to nullify at the local level the egregious, immoral, and unconstitutional acts of the general government. So if state power is to be used in any way, or local power, regional power, county power, it should be to nullify the atrocious things that the higher level governments do. And that's the reason why the 10th Amendment isn't enforced by the general government. That's an impediment to their power too, the fact that we should have federalism and the states controlling most of these things. But that's where we're at. I really applaud the judge for trying to convince Trump to pardon Snowden and Assange especially. Both of those things still need to happen. I hope both of those men have true justice one day, especially Snowden, who's been forced to live in exile away from his homeland after truly being an American hero. But I do want to hear what you guys have to say. Let me know down below. Are you surprised about the judge's story regarding the JFK files and pardoning Snowden and Assange? And do you think that there is an operative constitution still in existence in the United States? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also subscribe to Glenn. Great podcast, great interview, Glenn. Thank you. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can help support the channel. And in return, I'll give you all of my videos before they go live to the general public on my channel. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.